Have you used illegal drugs? The government says a third of you have, and about 5% if you use them regularly. It's probably more, because how many people answer honestly when the government asks? So what do we do about this? America's approach has been to go to war.
What's time?
It's showtime!
Police departments fight the war every day.
Put your hands up!
Lay down. Lay down.
Police, search warrant!
When we fight against drugs, we fight for the souls of our fellow Americans.
Get down! Get down!
There's pressure on police to do more.
Pressure from the politicians or pressure from the community to do something about it.
Jerry Oliver is Detroit's police chief.
It puts policing in a position of being involved in tactics that are desperate.
Police!
What does he mean by desperate?
Since the transactions are normally between a willing buyer and a willing seller, it causes the police to snoop,
Out-of-state tag, 9-5.
to sneak, to stoop, and to snare individuals sometimes in ways in which, even though I'm in the business and I know that it is legal, it's questionable.
It's clear down there. You can send those decoys in.
He may say it's questionable, but on this day, his officers are out on the street pretending to be dealers. Dozens of people drive up and ask to buy drugs. Then the cops radio ahead.
14, she's out now. You can come make your move.
They tell uniformed officers, arrest the customer.
What's the problem?
You know what you did then, right?
Nothing. I was attempting to buy some purchase of marijuana.
That's all you had to say, ma'am.
50 police officers were involved in this sting, though most of those arrested were trying to buy less than $25 worth of pot.
Okay.
Even when they make a big seizure. The head of narcotics isn't convinced that they're making progress.
Last year we had probably our largest cocaine seizure in history. However, it hasn't seemed to have an impact on drying up the amount of drugs that are actually coming into the city.
Hasn't had an impact. That's the story all over America. In the past 10 years, arrests have gone up nearly 50%. But the number of users and the supply of drugs has stayed about the same.
Bingo!
Got it? Got some more?
Are we making progress?
Absolutely.
Asa Hutchinson, President Bush's choice to run the DEA, the Drug Enforcement Administration, travels the world telling people we're winning the drug war.
Overall drug use in the United States has been reduced by 50% over the last 20 years.
But was that because of government's policies? Or was it just people wising up after the binges of the 70s? Drug use is down. It's not down lately. Last 10 years, it hasn't dropped.
We have flatlined. I believe we lost our focus to a certain extent.
It's hard to see how we lost focus, because you're spending more.
I don't believe that we had the same type of energy devoted to it as we have in certain times in the past.
It's not clear how you'd measure energy, but federal spending on the drug war has kept going up. It's up 50% over the past 10 years, and President Bush wants still more.
To reduce illegal drug use in America.
And that's just the Washington money. Cities and states spend still more.
Up to 3/4 of our budget somehow can be traced back to fighting this war on drugs.
3/4 of the budget. Yet the drugs are as available as ever.
Didn't I just ask you if you had some heroin on you?
I didn't even have that's in my pocket, man.
Since the arrests failed to stop the sellers, a newer tactic is to have authorities go after buyers.
Have a good day.
Here in Detroit, they're confiscating cars.
This vehicle now belongs to the City of Detroit's Narcotics Bureau.
This officer's car, now chasing down a drug buyer, was confiscated on a previous raid. They've taken so many cars, the police lot looks like a dealership.
Can I take my truck home or no?
No.
It costs people $900 to get their car back.
We're taking cars, we're taking property, we're taking houses.
Taking them and selling them. They bust up the furniture just to get rid of it. They don't even save the TV sets. Too much trouble, say the police. We just want to clear out the house and sell it.
Wonderful. Wonderful. They should take it.
Most of the neighbors are thrilled.
Good. Take the house. Take the one next to it. Take the furniture and take the owners to court.
But when government confiscates houses or cars and sells them, it keeps the money. The drug war gives officials an incentive to take more. Is this what we want? All the seizures, all the arrests?
We will never arrest our way out of this problem. All you have to do is go to almost any corner in any city, it will tell you that.
Oliver was once a big believer in the drug war. Not anymore.
If we did not have this drug war going on, we could spend more time going after robbers and rapists and burglars and murderers. That's what we really should be geared up to do. Clearly, we're losing the war on drugs in this country.
You told me you was gonna stop selling dope. Remember that?
It's insanity to keep doing the same thing over and over again.
Insanity? It's an odd statement from a police chief, but we hear the same frustration from others. In 1998, we visited this neighborhood in the Bronx, a neighborhood struggling with drugs and crime. 4 years and 15,000 narcotics arrests later, the drug dealers are still everywhere. The kids know where they are.
Every single block. Friend over there, over there, down there.
And the violence is constant. Every week they hear gunshots.
I fear for my child. I mean, every morning she walks to school. What am I supposed to do? Buy her bulletproof vest? I mean, this is really serious.
Gunshots going off 9:30, 10:30, 11:30. I'm scared.
The government says we're winning the war on drugs.
Well, not on Briggs Avenue and 196th Street, they're not.
No. Overall crime is down in America and in the South Bronx too. But drug use, the drug supply, is plentiful. If we're waging a war, it's hard to see how we're winning. We know the terrible things drugs can do. We've seen the despair, the sunken face of the junkie. No wonder those in government say, we've got to stop that. We have to fight drugs.
This is what happens to your brain after snorting heroin.
The government-subsidized ads are a vivid reminder of what drugs can do to people and their families.
This is what your family goes through, and your friends.
Polls show most Americans agree drug use should be illegal.
Any questions?
Or as former drug czar Bill Bennett put it,
this is a deadly and poisonous activity. It should be against the law. People should be imprisoned for long periods of time for doing it. It's a matter of right and wrong.
But when right and wrong conflict with supply and demand, nasty things happen. Government declaring drugs illegal doesn't mean people can't get them. It just means they get them on the black market, where they pay much more for them.
The only reason that coke is worth that much money is that it's illegal. Pure cocaine is 3 times the cost of gold. Now, if that's the case, how are you going to stop people from selling cocaine?
Father Joseph Kane is a priest in that Bronx neighborhood we saw earlier.
Peace, my brother. God bless you.
He's come to believe that while drug abuse is bad, drug prohibition is worse, because the black market does horrible things to his community.
There's so much money in it. I mean, it's staggering.
The war on drugs designed to help Americans has had 3 unintended consequences. First, it sucks children into the underworld. Second, it corrupts cops. And third, it creates crime. Let's take them in order.
We are recruiting children in the Bronx, in barrios, and all over the nation because of drug money.
Judge James Gray is a Superior Court judge in Orange County, California, who spent years locking drug dealers up. But now he's concluded it's pointless, because drug prohibition makes the drugs so absurdly valuable.
The money to be made from the sale of the illegal drugs is a bigger problem than the drugs themselves.
Judge Gray drove with us through Father Kane's neighborhood.
Why should a kid in this neighborhood work in this corner grocery when he can make 5 times the amount of money in an afternoon selling drugs?
Is that right? Is the money that good?
Yeah. That's how I started out. I saw all the things that the drug money was getting other people.
These young men, now ex-cons, say they were sucked into the drug trade by their local role models, the dealers. They were the cool people in the neighborhood?
Yeah, you can say that people looked up to.
You see somebody, you know, they got a fancy car, and they got nice jewelry, and all the girls are after them, you know, and you just get that, you know, that mentality that that's the right thing to do.
What guy would look for a job if you can make $300 a night? I mean, it's almost un-American to say, I can make this much money, but I'm not going to do it.
It's economics 1A. The drug money is corrupting our children. It is corrupting our law enforcement officers.
Corrupt cops. That's the second unintended consequence of drug prohibition. Cops like these are seduced by drug money. They have been for years.
While you were in uniform and on duty, did you commit thefts?
Yeah.
What would you steal?
Money and drugs.
Money and drugs. The temptation's so huge.
100, 203, 4, 5, 6.
Here, the man on the right, a San Antonio cop, waits to be paid after delivering what he was told was 20 pounds of cocaine. His take is $3,000.
$3,000. God dang it, man. Here.
He eagerly scoops up the money.
With all of the money, with all the cash, it's easy then to purchase police officers, to purchase prosecutors, to purchase judges.
This drug dealer used to make $20,000 a weekend with the help of the police. So the cops know and just...
Of course, how else are you going to exist? It's not like it's a big covert operation. It's out in the open. The cops are just another gang.
Most of the time when you dealt, you had some cops on your payroll?
Of course.
The third and probably worst unintended consequence is the drug crime. Films like Reefer Madness have told us people take drugs and just go crazy.
You're crazy. Take it easy, kid.
But think about it. In reality, do people go crazy, get violent because they're high on drugs? Rarely.
Most of our violence comes from the fact that it's illegal.
The violence happens because dealers arm themselves and have shootouts over turf.
An innocent bystander is hit during a shootout.
And the violence happens because addicts steal to pay the high prices for drugs. Nicotine is about as addictive as cocaine or heroin, but no one's knocking over 7-Elevens to get Marlboros or Budweiser.
Most people are not afraid of the legal pushers. They're not afraid of the supermarket selling alcohol. I don't see them shooting each other. But if you make the substance illegal, they will use violence because there's no other way of handling the problem.
That's what happened in the 1920s when government made alcohol illegal.
For 13 years, the idiocy continued.
It was alcohol prohibition that gave rise to criminals like Al Capone.
Gangsterism was a natural sequel, and battles for exclusive territories erupted with a violence unparalleled in the history of law enforcement.
The people who were against alcohol were sincere, I suspect. But they didn't see the implications. We know the implications in the year 2002. We know that prohibition doesn't work for alcohol. Why would it work for anything else?
The profits from today's drug prohibition now fund terrorism. The State Department says that's how bin Laden got some of his money.
It's the money that's really causing the problems here. The drugs are dangerous without question, but the drug money is turning a disease into a plague.
The drug war, say critics, is not just a war on our own people. It's a war on other people, mostly poor people who live in countries that produce our drugs. The United States spends billions trying to keep drugs out of America. But no matter how much we spend, or how many special police units are trained and equipped, or how many drug shipments police disrupt or intercept, it's had little impact on the amount of drugs found on America's streets. They keep coming. This videotape was made by an American drug buyer as he received a home delivery.
Take it on home to Grandma. It was a perfect drop. Put it right in the middle of the strip.
So where do most of these drugs come from? Here, in Colombia, South America. This is a coca plant. It grows everywhere here. It's like a weed. The opium poppies are growing over there. Colombia produces most of America's heroin and most of its cocaine. The coca plants are cultivated by farmers like these men who carve out fields in the remote jungle. Every 4 months or so, they strip the plants of their leaves and use a weed whacker to shred them. Then they squeeze a juice out of the leaves, which this farmer refined into coca powder. It took him about a third of a year to produce a pound of it. What will he get for that?
It's worth approximately $2,200.
They don't know exactly how much they'll get until they go by horseback or walk, sometimes for days in the jungle, until they get to remote marketplaces like this one. Growing coca and selling cocaine's illegal in Colombia, but here drug traffickers openly bid for the farmers' products. Rebel soldiers who control this area keep watch as the bartering begins. Weight and purity are checked. This bag of powder, once made into cocaine, will be worth about $250,000 on the streets of America. Now, these people know that some Americans may abuse their product. They know it's against the law.
Why are you still growing coca?
For me and any other peasant in the region, it's impossible to substitute what we make growing coca.
America spent millions trying to persuade these farmers to grow anything else. But because of drug prohibition, coca and poppies are so profitable, they've kept growing them.
But the Clinton administration had a plan. It was called Plan Colombia. They'd persuade coca farmers to stop growing coca, to grow bananas and sugarcane instead. How? Well, they'd use a carrot and a stick. The carrot would be that they'd pay them something, give them some farm instruments. The stick would be, if they didn't stop growing coca, we'd spray their fields.
And we are spraying them with herbicide that kills the coca and many other plants too. The peasants have come to hate the plains.
First of all, it was the helicopters. Then it was the airplanes. Everything around us was wet. 2 days after that, the leaves started to fall off the plants.
That convinced them to begin ripping up their coca plants and hope the plains won't spray again.
They know that the stick is there and we are the carrot.
USAID official Karen Harbert says the carrot's all the money America gives Colombia in hopes farmers will grow something besides coca.
We can certainly try and help him return to a legal activity.
But will they? Whenever a farmer does this, it just makes coca more valuable to those who do grow it.
It's the problem of prohibition economics. When you try to constrict supply, then that drives up the prices and the profits, and that lures more poor farmers into this economy.
Sanho Tree works for a Washington group that opposes the drug war.
So we're talking about farmers who really have nothing left to lose. This is not a moral failing on their part. They're really up against the wall. And growing coca means the difference between being poor or starvation. And they're not going to watch their children starve.
Even if they did obey the Americans and grew bananas or pineapples, how would they sell them? The road we took into the coca fields was one of the jungle's best. Most of the area is accessible only by mule or foot. The farmers can carry coca paste this way, but it's not practical to carry the bananas and pineapples we want them to grow.
Coca is the only thing that provides what we need to support our families.
So we will spray them again until they understand.
Rand Beers, Undersecretary of State, says America is not going to sit back and let farmers grow coca, no matter how poor they are.
An illegal activity is an illegal activity, and one doesn't get a special pass for being poor. They have to recognize that every effort to grow coca will be challenged by the government. Every work effort, every dollar, every pound of sweat that goes in to growing that coca may be lost.
Even if the spraying isn't killing all the coca, it at least reduces the amount that flows to America.
Actually, it doesn't. The more money we have put into this program, the more we spray, the more coca there is. What we've been doing with our drug war is like squeezing a balloon. You squeeze one end, it pops out the other.
And the Bush administration now admits that after the spraying, the amount of coca under cultivation increased by 25% last year, says the CIA.
Now, these people just go further into the Amazon, they cut down more rainforest, and they plant more coca. And meanwhile, we're chasing them with our spray planes.
In addition, America pays for helicopters, guns, and military advisors, and encourages Colombia to wage war in those little jungle factories where people convert coca plants into coca paste. The police destroy the paste and the chemicals, and then they pour gasoline on everything.
Okay, listo, fuera! Fuera!
And toss a grenade in to burn the shack down. They shoot their guns to scare off any traffickers who may be watching.
Go, 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 go! Go!
Then they make a hasty retreat in case the traffickers shoot back. Did this make a difference? Not really. Because for every factory destroyed, there are many more in the jungle.
We have not had the measure of success in the eradication program in Colombia that we need or that we want to have.
How much do you stop?
Well, I know what we're doing is increasing the risk to the traffickers.
Is this a way of saying that we don't stop much?
No, I think we stop a substantial amount.
10%?
I mean, whether you look at it as 10%, 20%, or 30%, there is some teenager out there that will not be able to afford the drug, and it results in saving somebody's life on the streets of the United States.
And the spraying, the dumping of herbicide on acres of Colombia? Since he admits this hasn't worked, why keep doing it? You're squeezing the balloon. You say you succeeded in Bolivia, but that just moved it to Colombia. Now you're spraying Colombia, it'll move back to Bolivia.
And the answer to that is we have to put pressure everywhere. If we're going to have success, we've got to fight this battle everywhere.
And we will continue to hunt down traffickers.
This is World News Tonight with Peter Jennings.
Good evening. The king is dead. Pablo Escobar, the Colombian drug king.
Authorities were excited when Pablo Escobar was killed.
Gunned down today by Colombian police.
People said it would cut the supply of drugs, but it didn't because the Cali cartel stepped in. Then they were arrested.
The arrests are a mortal blow to the drug cartels.
But they weren't a mortal blow because others immediately took their place.
Yes, others came in, more independent operators, to take the place because there are substantial profits in the cocaine business.
In addition, the vast profits created by drug prohibition are beginning to tear this country apart. Law is breaking down. You think we have drug crime in America? Here, there are 10 murders a day. And now, of all the countries in the world, the one where you're most likely to be kidnapped is Colombia.
Political leaders are especially at risk. Here, a presidential candidate is gunned down by drug traffickers at a political rally. And there have already been 15 attempts on the life of Colombia's next president, here surrounded by his bodyguards. He decided to leave the country. He's staying in Europe until his inauguration next month. Colombia today is besieged by warring factions, heavily armed warring factions. This group, the FARC's the biggest. They've been fighting the government for years, and now they videotape their battles. That's what this is. And now the fight, which was once about politics, is mostly about drugs, because the money's so huge. The United States has declared the FARC a narco-terrorist group. But our spraying, our war on drugs, is winning the FARC new friends.
We are providing optimal conditions for these armed groups to recruit. Once their farms get destroyed, they have nowhere else to turn. So they're associating the United States with death and destruction. And this is not a way to win hearts and minds.
We'll come back to America in a moment. People do abuse drugs, so what do we do about it? Government talks about treatment, but for the most part, our policy has been lock them up. And we do arrest 4,000 people a day for selling or using drugs.
I was just sitting there and I didn't even touch anything.
Most of these people will be booked and released, but every year, thousands of Americans are jailed just for using drugs. And jails are filled with people who sold drugs, like these girls' mom.
I want to be able to say, Mom, I need help with this problem in my homework. Mom, can you help me get my bath started? I just want to have my mom there.
What did your mom do?
She sells drugs.
She's serving 8 years to life.
On my graduation, everybody was asking, like, where's your mom?
What do you tell them?
I just say, my mom's living in New York. I don't like to tell them where she is.
Compared to other countries, America does lock lots of people up. More than 1 million are arrested on drug charges every year, and now about 500,000 are behind bars. Just for drugs, not for doing anything violent.
What I did was, harm to myself. I've never done harm to anybody in my life.
Manuel's in jail for using drugs.
Well, at least this will protect you from hurting yourself more. It'll teach you a lesson.
Jails are crowded with drugs. I mean, you get them just as easy as you do here as you do on the outside.
These others are in for dealing.
I was just doing it to support my habit.
By locking you up, at least we got rid of a dealer in your neighborhood.
I'm just one person. There's 1,000 more who are going to follow in my footsteps to take my place.
In many neighborhoods, when a dealer's locked up, it's not a deterrent, it's a job opening.
These drugs are so profitable that you take Tony off the street and Tony's kid brother is selling drugs the next day. Now you put Tony away, then you get the kid brother, and then you get the cousin, and then you get... Why would they stop doing that?
They don't stop doing it. So some people say, why have this war?
Stop the drug war! 60 years and we haven't won! It's time to quit!
They say they should be able to do what they want with their own bodies.
It's my body! It's my choice!
They say they ought to have the right to choose their intoxicants.
Do you know, nobody has ever died from smoking a joint anywhere in history?
This man lit up right in front of the cops.
You're willing to go to jail?
It's not about the marijuana. It's about the freedom. I have the right to make up my mind without interference from the government.
There is no risk to the population when a person sits in their living room at the end of a long day's work and lights up a joint.
But it makes you stupid. It makes you lazy.
I don't think I'm stupid, and I don't think I'm lazy, and I'm a responsible adult. I'm an attorney. I pay my taxes. I live a good, clean life, and if I feel like smoking a joint when I feel like it, that's my business.
We're making people criminals just by calling it an illegal substance. You can have a narcotic agent, literally, with a very dangerous substance in his hand called alcohol, and another dangerous substance, and tell you, say no to drugs. And that's, I mean, we don't even see the hypocrisy of that.
At this rally, there were lots of police. They arrested anyone they saw with marijuana. In this age of terrorism, I have to wonder, why were they here? So many of them.
Do you ever wish you were out chasing terrorists?
I'd rather be here than chasing terrorists, you know, definitely.
Is it sort of a waste of your valuable time? I mean, are these people a threat?
No, not at all. I mean, they're just something they want to do. I mean, they're not really a threat to us. They're not a threat to each other.
Well, why is it illegal then?
I'm not the one who makes the laws. I just enforce them. Why is it illegal? I don't know. I have no idea.
Because it gets you high.
Is the drug war a war we should be fighting? Is there a better idea?
There's no question that drugs often do terrible things to people. Lives have been wrecked. But the drug war wrecks lives too. Costs billions, creates crime. Is there another way? Much of Europe now says yes.
What would happen if we legalized drugs?
Well, here in Holland and Amsterdam, it's already happened. Using marijuana is legal here. What's that done?
Holland now has hundreds of coffee shops, they call them, where marijuana is officially tolerated.
Did you try that grass yesterday?
Yes, I did, as a matter of fact.
Red's a regular user. She smokes several joints a day.
Every day?
Every day.
Red's now a manager at this coffee shop, which offers a menu of marijuana choices, from joints to chocolates.
Chocolate bonbons, we have them in all three kinds of chocolate and made with weed butter added to it.
How much would you like?
Just a gram. The police do regulate the marijuana sales. Shops may sell no more than about 5 joints worth per person, and they're not allowed to sell to minors. And no hard drugs are allowed, just hash and marijuana.
That's good weed.
So what's the result? Is everyone getting stoned? No. In America today, 38% of adolescents have smoked pot. But here in Holland, it's only 20%.
They've taken the glamour out of it. In fact, the Minister of Health of Holland has said, we've succeeded in making pot boring.
Maybe that's why half the people we talk to in these coffee shops turned out to be American. You don't feel bad breaking your country's laws?
No, I don't. No, I don't. Because I don't see anything wrong with it.
The whole point about it is that it's a fun drug. It makes you feel really nice. It doesn't make you violent. It makes you relaxed. It makes you giggly.
So if it's such a good thing, why is it illegal in most of the world?
You tell me.
Drug use threatens everything. Everything.
In America, there's little interest in legalizing any drug.
I am adamantly opposed.
Officials talk about fighting a stronger war.
We call it a drug war, and yet it was not war.
Once, President Clinton's Surgeon General dared suggest legalization might reduce crime.
I don't know all of the ramifications of this, and I do feel that we need to do some studies.
Heaven knows, I never had so much rain fall on me about what I considered a fairly simple, innocuous statement.
The best way for Dr. Elders to promote the public health needs of this country is to resign.
Not even discussing legalization has roughly been U.S. policy for 30 years, as Los Angeles' former police chief put it.
It's simply wrong, and it should not be even discussed here in America.
You're not even supposed to talk about it?
Well, I guess you aren't. Nobody talks about it. And of course, how can you ever fix anything if you can't even talk about it?
And most official talk about Holland's law condemns it. It's a failure, said the last drug czar, an unmitigated disaster. Is it really? It's not what we heard here in Amsterdam. This isn't even controversial anymore?
It's normal.
Dutch clients will pick up a small amount of cannabis the same way they would pick up a bottle of wine in the store.
Rotterdam Police Superintendent Jur Verbeek says kids are going to try marijuana, legal or not. If you close down the coffee shops, they wouldn't be able to get it.
Where will the young people go? Tell me, please.
Maybe they'll give up marijuana.
Or they are curious. And when there are no coffee shops, they will go to the illegal houses, and then the dealer said, okay, you want to have marijuana? Good, but we have cocaine as well, and we have heroin for you.
That was a reason for the Dutch experiment with marijuana, to separate soft drugs from the more dangerous hard drugs. But in Holland, some people are experimenting with how to deal with hard drugs, too. Check out what's going on inside this church. In the basement, they're buying heroin and injecting it right in the church. The police know about this, but don't stop it. So already, you feel it?
Yeah.
Feel good? This is happening in Hans Fischer's church.
It does not mean that I agree the use of dangerous drugs.
You're a drug dealer. You're allowing people to deal in your church.
I am not a drug dealer. I am not involved in the dealing of drugs.
You're inviting them into the house of the Lord. You're the landlord who lets it go on.
The church is for sick and poor people. Thus, in my opinion, drug addicts are sick. We have responsibility for them.
What Fischer's doing is illegal in Holland. Using hard drugs isn't forbidden, but selling is. Fischer only allows addicted people who follow certain rules to use drugs at the church, and police look the other way.
When we interfere, then the problem is more bigger.
Inside the church, addicts buy drugs from a few dealers that Fischer selects. They buy through this window, which replicates the illegal buy they're used to. It also prevents greedy addicts from grabbing too much. Then, 3 times a day, they're allowed to use the smoking room or the injection room.
You have headache, you take medicines for your headache. I take medicines, it's for me a medicine.
Most societies, if they've tolerated this, have tolerated it because it affects a part of the population that they don't care about or manage not to care about.
America's drug czar, John Walters, says these user rooms are a terrible idea.
We want to make people well. We don't want to settle for institutions that just allow people to be addicted more safely.
This doesn't look like a good life, but at least instead of being street criminals searching for a fix, it allows addicts to hold jobs and support families. This woman says 1 shot of heroin and she can go to work. So you can do your job stoned?
No. If I am stoned, they send me at home.
But you come here, you get high.
Listen, I have my use under control. Before I had this job, I maybe take 8 times a day or 10 times a day, I take a shoot. But now I only want to take a shoot a day. So it's only to make me feel normal.
What the Dutch are doing makes sense to Judge Gray.
They're addressing it as managers. We address it as moralizers. We address it as a character issue, and if you fail that test, we put you in prison. They are removing the criminal element. They have a lower drug problem, they have a lower crime problem, they have fewer people in prison.
What started here in Holland has now spread. Today, police in most of Europe ignore marijuana use. In Spain, Italy, and Luxembourg, they've decriminalized most drug use, and in Portugal recently, all drug use. That's not to say that all the experiments succeed. Switzerland once tried what became known as Needle Park, a place where anyone could use any drug.
It was just Junkie Park. There were like 500 to 1,000 people every day there who would just like use drugs or deal drugs.
It attracted crime because it became a magnet for junkies from all over Europe. And in Amsterdam, ABC's Hidden Camera shows legalizing marijuana shops doesn't stop people from selling illegal drugs.
I have heroin, I have cocaine, I have ecstasy.
Critics say Holland's become an island of drug use.
Ecstasy. How much? 100 per gram.
But while this does happen, the use of drugs in Holland and all Europe is still lower, by far, than in the U.S. And European countries are proposing even more liberalization. American politicians have shown little interest in that.
We in America should have a different approach. We should discourage drug use, and we should try to enforce our laws.
But we've been trying that now for 30 years, and we still have addicts.
We have been trying it for 30 years, and we've had an extraordinary amount of success, and yes, we still have addicts, which means it's a very difficult problem that we're trying to achieve.
He showed us a headline from a British newspaper. This, he says, demonstrates that liberalization hasn't worked.
Drugs fuel crime rise.
But the crime part is caused by prohibition. This article is about heroin crime, and heroin's still illegal there. If it were legal, people wouldn't be committing crime to pay for it.
Well, let's talk about that. After prohibition ended, did the criminal element, did organized crime go out? No, organized crime continued.
But it diminished.
They shifted. They moved to other elements of crime. You do not win in these efforts by giving in.
Giving in. By that he means legalizing. Some thoughts about that when we return. How many wars can America fight? Now that we're at war against terrorism, can we also afford to fight a drug war against millions of our own people? Is it wise to fight on two fronts?
Second platoon, 3 o'clock, you're on the other hill.
The last time America engaged in a war of this length was Vietnam. And then, too, government put a positive spin on success of the war.
Now, America wins the wars that she undertakes. Make no mistake about it.
We've heard the same kind of optimism about the drug war.
And we're beginning to win the crusade for a drug-free America.
But today, more people have doubts.
It is the legitimate function of government to protect us from each other. But where government goes astray is where we try to protect us from ourselves.
Way of arraignment.
It makes as much sense to me to put this actor Robert Downey Jr. in jail for his drug abuse as it would have Betty Ford in jail for her alcohol abuse. It's really no different. Hold people accountable for what they do, but not for what they put into their bodies.
Why not sell drugs the way we do alcohol, he says, but maybe with more restrictions.
Make it available to adults. Brown packaging, no glamour. Take the illegal money out of it and then furnish it, holding people accountable for what they do. These drugs are too dangerous not to control.
Legal drugs. That's a frightening thought. Maybe more people would try them. Judge Grace says even if they did, that would do less harm than the war we've been fighting for the past 30 years.
What we're doing now has failed. In fact, it's hopeless. This is a failed system that we simply must change.
Drugs do hurt people, but isn't the drug war worse? That's our broadcast for tonight. I'm John Stossel. Good night.